Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
A wise man once told me that they make library manipulation that's too good sometimes, and
Is that true?
It's our job to just play it when they do that.
So you couldn't possibly be speaking about this new set here, could you?
Oh my god, man. This card, Once Upon a Time, have you seen this one?
Yeah.
Wow. So, Once Upon a Time, 1 in a G instant. It's got a little gold symbol, though, so you know it's probably good. It has the effect, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's kind of really impulse-ish, but wait, there's more. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost.
Yeah. So the idea here, obviously, is that it kind of speaks to some of those, various green cards that, I know some people are worried about this card's helping you put together Tron, and if you have some sort of a fast combo, if you're playing, imagine if you're playing relatively few land in your deck, but you've got 4 Simian Spirit Guides and 4 Elvish Spirit Guides or whatever else, right? Like there's all these different things that you could potentially use Once Upon a Time for, that, and people are kind of worried that it could be kind of busted. Because normally, like, people have played Adventurous Impulse, right, which is this effect, but as a sorcery, and only looks at 3 cards for 1 mana.
Yeah.
And so for 1 additional mana, you're getting an instant, you're getting to look at 5 cards, and then you also get this rebate on the first one. But are you ready for my hot take?
What?
Overrated. Most overrated card in the set.
Really?
Yeah, see, hot take, right?
Do you think it's not going to be excitingly played?
Well, I can't speak to the excitedness. I think people are going to play it excitedly. I think that it's not going to turn out to be a very big deal. It might. Obviously, this is the type of card that could be a problem, like Ponder and Preordain or whatever else, right? Like, it could be that this is just too much consistency for powered formats. And if it is, no big deal. Whichever format it's a problem in, maybe they'll ban it or whatever. It'll be legal in some format and good in some format, but I don't think it's this crazy busted thing the way that people think it is, for several reasons. The first, and I'm not saying it's not exciting and you're not going to build around it. I think it is exciting and I think you should build around it. I just think it's going to turn out to be the case that there are several strikes against this card that are going to actually matter enough to hold it back. The first is, this card can get creatures or land. It can't get planeswalkers or artifacts. I think there are a lot of people who are confusing this. Or they're not confusing it, but they're mentally making some shortcuts that are not warranted. The difference between getting a creature or a land versus getting a colorless card is a really big difference.
Oh, sure. Like, one of them you can get Wormcoil Engine, the other one you can get Wormcoil Engine or Karn or Ugin, right?
Right,
or Oblivion Stone.
Right. And I think that not being able to get artifacts or planeswalkers is going to surprise people how much it is relevant. The second part is that this card is not that good to draw 2 of. Like, even if you have 2 in your opening hand, which is where this card would be busted, the second one still costs you 2.
Yeah, I think that the kind of the limiting factor on this card is that if it didn't have that it's free if it's your first spell clause, this card would be borderline unplayable, right?
No, I don't think so.
It wouldn't be good, though.
It wouldn't be good. It would not be unplayable, though.
No, borderline.
No, I mean, people have played 1 in a green, look at the top 5 cards, and you get a creature or an enchantment. Like, it's like, I think that the fact that this is also an instant, it really does matter. It's kind of a nice thing. Like, when it costs 1, it doesn't matter as much being an instant. But costing 2, it's kind of nice that it's actually an instant.
Maybe this card's great in the Flash deck, actually.
Maybe. Could be okay.
If you really want... First of all,
the smoothing is nice.
It's a consistent kind of buff for your Wildborn if that card is still good in the Flash deck. But if you really want, the wolf making wolf, that's That's going to help out on the consistency here. I do think that the utility, the 5 dig with no land in your opening hand or something, I think that is going to be very, very beneficial to people.
Yeah, I think the card's good. I just think it's overrated because I think people just keep mentally doing some gymnastics where they're imagining this be a zero cost look at the top 5. And I think you're going to be surprised at how often it's not all of the top 5 that you get to choose from, and how often you're going to pay 2 instead of 0. You're going to pay 2 most of the time,
like 75% of the time. I mean, like more.
So yeah, I think this card is very overrated, but I think it's a solid card.
So there's another library manipulation card I thought maybe I'd put in front of you and see what you thought about it.
Yep.
What do you think about the Wish Claw Talisman? So Wish Claw Talisman is 1 and a B for an artifact. So though it's an artifact, it is not a colorless card. Wish Claw Talisman enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. It has the following ability. 1 tap. Remove a wish counter from Wish Claw Talisman. Search your library for a card. Put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wish Claw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. What do you think about that guy?
So there's 2 very different levels to look at this card. The first is at a top level. If you just are doing it straight up, you get for 3 mana, you pay 2 to get it in play, and then for a 3rd mana, you get a Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
And then your opponent has now sitting in play, and it won't be ready until they untap so that they could do it on the next turn. But they have the option to buy a 1-mana Demonic Tutor at any point later.
Yeah.
And if they do buy that 1-mana Demonic Tutor, it comes with the price of you're going to get a 1-mana Demonic Tutor on the following turn. I think if you play it straight up, it's not very good.
Really?
I think that if you just play it straight up, I think that I think 4 mana for a Demonic Tutor is not good.
Not good enough anymore.
It was very rarely ever that good. Those are some pretty low-powered formats.
Yeah, we've had access
to a 4-mana Demonic Tutor that can also draw out of your sideboard.
That card was great.
It wasn't played very much.
It was good enough.
It was okay. It was good enough, but it wasn't very good.
All right. So you said this card is on multiple levels.
So for 3 mana, though, I think a 3-mana Demonic Tutor would be good. So this card is a 3-mana Demonic Tutor, but I think your opponent having the option to buy a 1-mana Demonic Tutor at will, not at will, sorry, only during their turn. But I think your opponent having the ability to buy a 1-mana Demonic Tutor, and at the price of you get to have a 1-mana Demonic Tutor on the next turn, it's too bad because there's too many things they could tutor for that make it so you either die or you never get a chance to get that turn or get to use the Wish Claw Talisman or whatever else, right? Like it's kind of like an emergency option for them. But I think giving your opponent that option is worse than a mana. Than paying a mana more. It
could be very bad. It depends what they're getting, right?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the distribution of all of it. The combos, though, the second level is if you have synergy. And one of the things you can do with Wish Claw Talisman is build synergies into your deck, because sometimes you'll just draw something that has synergy with it and you'll tutor for whatever you want. But sometimes you won't draw a synergy and you could literally just go tutor for the synergy. For instance, on turn 4, like you could put the Wish Claw Talisman down on turn 2 or whatever. And on turn 4, you pay a mana, go get Teferi, Time Raveler, and then bounce Wish Claw Talisman.
Sure, that's one of the things I thought of too.
So I think the fact that you can also just count on, you can have cards in your deck that destroy artifacts or in some way punish your opponent for artifacts or whatever, right? Like your beloved Embereth Shieldbreaker is a 2/1 for 2 that we talked about last week that has that red adventure destroy target artifact. Well, if you just have a bunch of those in your deck anyway, then you get to do it for, you get to, now you're just spending 1 mana to destroy this thing instead of letting them have the option.
Oh, so you're saying I could spend 1 in a B, play my Wishclaw Talisman, spend another one, get my Ember the Shield Breaker, and then spend an R.
No. Don't get the Shield Breaker. Don't get the Shield Breaker. I'm saying if you already have a bunch of Shield Breakers in your deck. Like if you already had a bunch in your deck, it's a way to get a little extra utility out of the ones you draw. I think you're going to want to tutor for something more high impact.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that's a real expensive way to get a 2/1 in play. I think we're finally at 6 to get a straight 2/1.
Another option is this Oko Thief of Crowns.
Yeah,
being able to turn it into an elk, just so you can get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's also a very natural one. I think that there's a couple of things going on, even if you don't have the synergies, right? So
you can also just bounce this thing, man. That's the big one.
Yeah,
any kind of bounce.
Like, what if you get Flood of Tears, right? Like, Flood of Tears, 4UU, M20 card. Briefly, there was that Omniscience combo deck that had this card. I think Omniscience is rotating, but Flood of Tears is not. It's that card's return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If you return 4 or more non-land permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Like, you can give them this card, Wishclaw Talisman, if you have Flood of Tears, and then they can't use it even if it's untapped, right, on their turn. I'm sorry, on your turn, and then you just cast the Flood of Tears, bounce everything, including the Wishclaw Talisman. I mean, you could probably just, this is probably a loop, Wishclaw Talisman and Flood of Tears. Just those two cards together probably put some, at least bouncing stuff over and over again.
Yeah, so there's going to be ways to abuse it, and I think that the best ones are going to revolve around bouncing it, so I think you're on the track.
I think this card's really powerful. I think the synergies are on the bonus. There are a couple of things that I think...
You think people are going to just play this card straight up?
I do think that there are going to be times where it's appropriate. I'll give you 2 examples. One of them, and it's weird because these examples are on opposite ends of the spectrum from each other. One of them is just if you just get a card that wins the game or pushes the game over, it's a very low mana. You could pay the down payment on Wishclaw Talisman early and then not use it for a long time. If you do something like that, for sake of argument, I'm just using this as an example, but there are a lot of different ways you can kind of take it. If you've done 17 points of damage to somebody and then you just use the Wishclaw Talisman to get a lightning strike to finish them off, right? It's not just with burn, because this is probably a silly card to play in a burn deck, but just anything that pushes somebody over. And I think that the philosophy around that is, if you can get a card that wins the game, then you don't have any downside risk of the opponent having the Wishclaw Talisman because they're dead. Right, so burning is an easy example of that, but there are a lot of similar kind of examples. The other one is, if your opponent's deck is all the same, right? They're just a bunch of creatures, or they're just a bunch of burn spells, some kind of a deck like that, and you can use the Wishclaw Talisman to go and get a super high leverage card that's good against their cards. So, let's say they're all creatures and you get, a Wrath of God, or they're all burn cards and you get, a Circle of Protection or red. Something along those lines that's gonna deal an enormous amount of damage to their strategy, or their deck is so homogenous or so synergistic that you can just break it up with one card. I think the downside risk is minimal in those cases, because the card that they're going to go get is just another card that you were going to beat, right? And I think that they're just never going to use the Wishclaw Talisman in that case, because it's so dangerous for them to even let you ever get another shot at it. And they're not going to get anything good. They're just going to get the same.
All right, well, we shall see. I think the first one, I don't think the second one's going to actually be too applicable, but I think your first argument's pretty good. Whenever you're in a situation, if you're playing the sort of deck that, does Maniac tutoring with Demonic Consultation type of stuff, right? If you've got whatever it is, if you getting the stuff you need wins the game, then you're getting a 3-mana Demonic Tutor out of this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that it's a 3-mana Demonic Tutor that you can put a down payment on, so that, if you just erase the 2 mana that you spend on the Wishclaw Talisman because you don't use the activated ability for some time in the future, it's kind of like a Demonic Consultation, right? It's 1 mana at that point, and just 1 mana to set up a win.
Dude, plus you can just Dak Fade in this stuff, man. So there's some of these creatures I think are kind of... I mean, I get that you're all about the library manipulation these days, but, dude, some of these creatures, man, it's been a good couple of days for the green creatures.
Oh,
so what do you think?
Heck yeah.
What do you think of Questing Beast? 2 green, 4/4 legendary creature beast. It's a 4/4 vigilance, death touch, haste. Questing Beast can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. And when Questing Beast deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls.
So this card is really cool because it has haste, right? So if the opponent has, like,
quotes from Michael J. Flores.
They just tap out for their Teferi, right? Then you're like, 4th mana, Questing Beast, attack you, kill the Teferi. That's sweet. I like that. 4/4 haste for 4. And it has all these other abilities. I mean, it's weird, like, Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste is an odd combination. Like, I was like, hey, I kind of want a first strike here. That's the first thing I thought. Maybe I'm just too greedy. I think
first strike on a green creature, huh?
I don't know, man. It wouldn't be the first time.
I don't want to hear it.
So I don't know. This card certainly has a lot of stuff going on. It's actually not one of my favorites among the green creatures.
You don't think this is good?
I don't know that I don't think it's good. I think like there are a bunch of things that I can do for 4, and this is maybe in 3rd place of the green things I can do for 4 off the top of my head. I think it's I don't know. It's like maybe a great role player. Like the fact that it's Death Touch and Vigilance. I mean, it makes it probably a very good defender. It always gets its man if you're in combat. I think it's.
How do you feel about this card with some kind of fog effect?
Oh, so like you're always getting in combat and your guys are going to win because their guys don't do any damage and your guys always deal damage?
Yeah.
I think that is a complicated way to do it.
All right, what about just a 4/4 haste for 4 like a Hellhound? Yeah. Except instead of dealing 4 damage to you, it has 5 other abilities plus good types. So like, dude, first of all, a 4/4 haste that doesn't do 4 damage to you, you have to be already at least sort of interested, right?
Man. I mean, if this were in red, I would think it was fantastic.
So then the fact that you can hit their face and still hit their planeswalker, that's interesting, right?
And he's still back up on D.
Well, and you get to decide which planeswalker to hit. Like if they have 2 planeswalkers, you don't have to commit to the attack until you see how the rest of combat shakes out. Like depending on how your opponent blocks, you could decide where you want to send the 4 damage from Questing Beast.
Yeah, and he can't get chumped. That's the other thing that's pretty cool.
That's the thing I think, is the fact that he can't get chumped, and he's a 4/4 haste that doesn't get chumped or game blocked the same way. I don't know, man. This card seems pretty good to me. This is like, there's got to be some Gruul decks that are like very in the market for this.
I guess guy rules the red zone. I agree with that. But it's just not. I think that like there are other cards that I'm more interested in, even at that casting cost.
Yeah.
Like, do you like this guy better or worse than the Ambusher from the previous set?
They're just so different. You're not taking one out for the other. I mean,
no, I agree. I agree.
So I don't think they're comparable the same way. It depends on the rest of the support because it would depend on which deck you're playing it in. Yeah,
and I think like it depends on how into food you are. There's so many things that are just you get hella paid on food. So this isn't a food card. Like, what do you think about Wicked Wolf, for example?
Not even in the zip code of Questing Beast.
Yeah, I think Wicked Wolf is great.
You think it's better than Questing Beast?
Same thing you said about the Ambusher. They're very, very different. I mean, Wicked Wolf is a surgeon. Questing Beast is a tidal wave.
I think that if you're already going to play a wolf deck, fine, right? If you got the food, maybe. It's just that you got to be in for the food.
Oh, yeah.
Right, like, because I think a 3/3 that fights a creature that's a wolf, that's not enough.
No. So if you've got to be in for the food. Like, Wicked Wolf with Oko, for example, I think is a sweet combo.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, Wicked Wolf, like, without any food, without any, like, wolf synergies, anything like that, is weaker than Sand Strangler. And Sand Strangler was a playable card, but like, wasn't the most exciting card. But like Wicked Wolf is, I think, worse than that if you don't have the other synergies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think Wicked Wolf's going to have spots. I think it'd be nice to care about the wolf part, and you definitely got to be in for the food. But I think Questing Beast is just a card you could just put in decks. I think Questing Beast is a card that could be sideboarded in when you want to threat and you want to transform a little bit. And I think Questing Beast is going to have some spots sometimes in some sort of Gruul decks or mono green decks.
That's an awesome comment, actually. Like Bant control might want to just sideboard Questing Beast would be awesome in that sideboard, right?
Yeah, I think Questing Beast is the type of dude that in a lot of spots, if you just need a card that just does a bunch, like if you just need a card that's powerful that doesn't ask anything of you, Questing Beast does it all. So like it can be a new plan. You could just not have any support for anything. You play Questing Beast and suddenly you have a new dimension to your deck. You know, it's got that Baneslayer Angel thing going where it's sort of a one card team.
Oh yeah, it's very Sarah Angel, right? Like, I mean, it's a much better card than Sarah Angel, but like that whole offense defense. I'm going to keep you alive. I'm going to kill them.
And it's holding things at bay while not being able to be chump blocked, while also putting down a presence against other people's planeswalkers.
Yeah. I just think like Wicked
protection
Wolf...
also. You know, people's protection doesn't work.
Oh, I didn't realize. So if you've got pro green, Questing Beast just mows them over anyway.
Right, because it's not like the green spells are targeting your opponent. You can't target them, but that doesn't really come up too much with green anyway. But like protection from green can't stop your stuff, or protection from whatever. If you have any protection related issues, if you're playing a mostly red deck that has enough green to actually play Questing Beast, your opponent playing a 1/1 flying protection from red may not be a problem anymore.
Oh, that's awesome. I completely missed that initially. That's cool. I was just thinking like Wicked Wolf, I think it's going to be low to mid tier main deck card, but I think it's going to be a sideboard all-star. That's my prediction.
It could be. It reminds me a lot of the desert dude you were mentioning earlier.
I think like in decks that have food synergy, it's way better, right? But it like, I mean, the guy's going to like...
You're going to be pretty crowded at 4.
Yeah, but he's going to come down and beat Questing Beast. Like, that's the thing that I like about Wicked Wolf.
Maybe he will.
But there are even more exciting green creatures that were revealed this week. Like, very, very exciting.
Dude, Feasting Troll King. 2 green for a 7/6 Troll Noble. So it's a 7/6 Vigilance Trample. When Feasting Troll King enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, create 3 food tokens. And you can sacrifice 3 food tokens to return Feasting Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your turn. So you straight up, you get a 7/6 Vigilance Trample for 6. Which is already...
virtual 9 life.
But then the fact that you get 3 food tokens so that you have access to 9 extra life if the game goes that way, what a blow to certain types of aggressive strategies, right? But then the fact that you can also sack the 3 food to get the Feasting Troll King back, and when you do, you won't get 3 more food. It's not that kind of a thing. But the fact that it's effectively a 7/6 Vigilance Trample that if it dies, you can just get another 7/6 Vigilance Trample on your next turn. Right, like that's a pretty potent top-end threat, right? Like against people with removal that can't exile. But even if they exile, you still have 9 extra life to show for your troubles. And if you're playing some kind of a food deck, you can potentially get this guy back more than once, you know?
Oh, yeah. So I actually think that your description of Feasting Troll King is like the low end of how good Feasting Troll King is going to be. Like, what if you play Feasting Troll King in a, like, not even a green deck? What if you played it in a deck with, like, just, like, Taste of Death, right? Taste of Death was that card we talked about last week. 4 BB, sorcery, each player sacrifices 3 creatures, so you create 3 food. Like, if you've just got any kind of a food engine, and you could just be looting Feasting Troll King, you just never have to cast it.
That's a great point. If you so turn 1, you play Gilded Goose.
Yeah.
You've got a food token already, right? Like, depending on which ways they have to loot, and the fact that Oko sort of speaks to the food stuff in blue-green, blue with looting, and green for the Troll King, because I think in Gilded Goose, there could be some really... I mean, it's not out of the question to imagine that you might be able to get the Troll King down on turn 3.
So, like, I think this card is really, really good. It's funny to me because like there have been at least 3 different times looking at this set. I looked at a card. Oddly enough, I think it was a green card every single time. I'm like, this is just the best card in the set. I thought that Lovestruck Beast was fantastic. It was one of the first cards. I think this card is unbelievable. I think like this card is just redonkulous. I think it's fine. If you're playing an Oko deck, you're going to cast it sometimes because you have green mana anyway. But I think that this guy's just like, you're not playing fair with Feasting Troll King. There's no point in playing fair. He's like unkillable long term. He plays defense, right? 7/6 defense.
Well, hey, dude, the fact that Gilded Goose is like a 1-card combo with this, I mean, I guess it's not strictly 1 card outside of the fact that you also need to have the troll and a way to discard it. But if you can discard this guy for 1 mana, you can go turn 1 Gilded Goose, get some food, turn 2 tap the goose and pay 2 mana to create some food, and then turn 3 tap 2 mana, create some food, and if you can spend 1 mana to discard the Troll King, you'll just have him in play on turn 3.
Yeah.
And you didn't like draw some other fancy combination. You were just using the goose. The goose is loose.
What do you think about the goose?
I think the goose is really good. I didn't realize it at first. I thought about it more. We talked about it a little bit last week, but I've really warmed up to it. I think the Gilded Goose is really good.
I think it's really good too. I think like if you play I was thinking like you play the goose on turn 1, you get the food, and then turn 2 sack the food for blue or whatever because it gives you that additional mana making ability. You just drop Oko on turn 2. Then what happens in that situation is you just make the food back for the goose, and it seems kind of silly between Oko and the goose. You kind of Lego together a Birds of Paradise, and that doesn't seem that good, but like you're doing it, and if you don't use the food, then you can stockpile food, and the goose can make more food. But you're also gaining loyalty. It's not like you're just like this weird 1.5 card combo that makes a birds, right? I
don't know.
Pretty cool.
It's fine. It's cool. It is cool, but I don't think you're going to want to aim so hard to get the goose to do that so much, to always lay eggs. I think that having first of all, I think the first mana that you get out of your Bird of Paradise is worth way more than any of the rest of them. Second of all, I think that people have so much incentive to kill your Bird of Paradise. The fact that you still have food left over when they do is that's some energy stuff. And then the fact that your Bird of Paradise can actually be gaining you 3 life a turn when the game stretches out is like a late game plan. And then the fact that even when you just pick a spot, use your extra mana to make some food, you have access to an extra mana in a pinch. I think that the extra options are going to add up a surprising amount. But you're going to the fact you can go turn 1 Gilded Goose, turn 2 Thief of Sanity, or turn 2 Teferi Time Raveler. I think rather than focusing on making the goose so reliable of a mana supply, if you just do the most powerful thing you can on turn 2, that's going to be a really awesome way to use the goose. And then later, you just have these options,
Yeah. I think that the 4 mana gain 3 life every turn is an expensive way to do it, but it will still break some people.
I also just think you're going to put +1/+1 counters on things. This thing can attack. It's a 0/2 flyer. If you put some +1/+1 counters on this thing, you're kind of giving them the business.
Yeah, and especially if they discounted it, right? If the goose is high impact early, like you said, the first mana that you get out of the Birds of Paradise is more valuable than the nth mana. So if you're all right, it's after turn 2 or 3, I don't really care about the goose anymore. If it suddenly becomes a meaningful thing, then all of a sudden it's a meaningful thing. Not for nothing, Gilded Goose on the first turn will contain a Healer's Hawk. So I think that's kind of funny. These are cards that people play. 1/1 Flying Lifelink, taking half of the edge off of that guy.
So, I think you're right. I think that's a really good point regarding the Troll King. There's a cheaper creature, though, that I think is worth taking a look at. Wildborn Preserver. 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Archer. Has Flash and Reach. And whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay X to put X +1/+1 counters on Wildborn Preserver.
I think this card is fabulous. All right. First of all, you could just play it on turn 2. What if you just, mug their Healer's Hawk or Muggler, like whatever smaller guy that they played on turn 1. And you're just like, all right, get you. Simeon grunts their face on that. But you could easily be like attacking for 4 with it the next turn. That's the thing that's great about this card, right? You're just like, second turn Wildborn Preserver and block, untap, kind of like land 1-drop.
I don't know how I count on blocking with it if you want to be it living.
No, but there's tons of stuff that it will beat on turn 2, right? Like any like 1-1, 1-2 kind of guy, it happens.
Okay.
It has reach.
It does. I think the fact that it has reach is pretty dope because there are an above average number of flyers, but the reach also becomes really high impact when it starts getting all these +1/+1 counters. The thing that makes this card so sick, though, I mean, dude, if you just play this like in a Simic flash deck, this card's fantastic. A 2/2 flash reach for 2 is like, it's not like that far off, and who knows if Elf matters. But the fact that you can just start scaling your mana into this. Like, you can pay 1 mana to play a 1/1 flying flash berry and then pay your other 2 mana. And so you could actually, in theory, you could do things like you could play Wildborn Preserver in the middle of combat, then flash down a 1-drop fairy, and then pay your extra mana and have the Wildborn Preserver just Necrotal something right out. I think this card is just so perfect of a pairing for the Simic flash deck.
I mean, if you're just like Wildborn Preserver and then like 2 turns later you just drop the Ambusher, aren't they just kind of destroyed? Like, it's not non-token creature, it's non-human creature. If you're just spitting out a token every turn, like, just leave up enough mana to cast your permission spell, and the Wildborn Preserver is just going to grow and grow and grow. He's maybe like a 10/10 in a few turns.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can also just do this at instant speed, so you don't have to commit any of your mana. So all your flash creatures can just be such a sick bonus to this card. I think this card is a home run.
Yeah, I think this card's fantastic. I agree. So what's up with like some versions of the cards like Wicked Wolf, Wildborn Preserver, Gilded Goose, Feasting Troll King have like the no borders? Like, is that... Do you know anything about this? Like in other ones?
What do you mean no borders?
They're like regular card frames versus like these fancy card frames?
Well, I mean, the fancy card frames, there's fancy versions of cards. They're still going to have a normal one, too.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still normal ones. Like, for instance, you can see now the normal version of Lovestruck Beast.
Oh, okay. So they're just like... I guess they're just for collectability?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Dude, outside of green, though, if we pivot off of green for a minute, what do you think of Venerable Knight? White for a 2/1. And when Venerable Knight dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target knight you control.
I mean, I just want to know what they were thinking when they made this. Like, isn't this card, like, kind of... Is it too good?
No.
Like, 2/1 for white is already... Every time they make 2/1 for white, it gets played. Tom Ross will play a deck that has, like, 6 different kinds of 2/1 for white, and some of them are better than the other ones, but he's got them all in his deck.
Some, yeah. I mean, I don't know. This card's good, but it's still mostly just a 2/1. It's not like the +1/+1 counter on a knight is that high impact. It's good. This card's going to be really good in your knight deck. Even if you're not playing a knight deck, like, sometimes you'll get any value out of your Savannah Lion. I think the card's fine. It's good. It's going to look great in a knight deck, but
I think they're pushing knight as
yeah, we shall see. I mean, the Worthy Knight, man. 1 and a white, 2/2. Whenever you cast a knight spell, you get a 1/1 white human creature token.
I mean, this card is like... It's like a... He's not Monastery Mentor, right? I'm not crazy, but he is less.
Yeah, but I mean, like, she just brings a squire with everybody. If you're going to play a knight deck, this is like a pretty good incentive.
I think this card is awesome. For a knight deck.
Hot takes. There's a blue creature, Hypnotic Sprite, that's kind of caught my eye. Blue for a 2/1 flyer, and it has 2 and a blue instant counter target spell with converted mana cost 3 or less.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You're not into this?
It's like, okay. I mean,
what?
UU for a 2/1 flying is fine.
You would play that in some spots.
Yeah, but I mean, like, The counterspell isn't that. I guess you get the optionality. You're in love with this card?
No, but I sure like it.
I'm intending to play a lot of fast blue creatures in the upcoming format, and this wasn't on my short list.
Dude, even your impulse for 5 cards can hit this.
Oh, I guess I'm impulsing for 5 cards, and now I have a counterspell?
Yeah.
I might be incentive.
That's not the worst, right?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't think this guy's like the end of the world or anything, but I think it's okay. There's also, sometimes you're just going to be like, you're going to be able to convert a 2/1 flyer for 2 into a card a pretty good chunk of the time. 2 and a blue, counter target spell with converted mana cost 3 or less. Draw a card. You would be into that, right? That would be unbelievable.
Yes.
Now, how would you be into 2 and a blue, counter target spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, draw a card, then discard a card?
Probably still, yeah. It seems okay. It seems good.
I think a 2/1 flyer for 2 is worth more than looting.
When I think about drawing a card or even looting, drawing and discarding, I'm often thinking about getting my next land drop or like the possibility of what I might draw. But I guess if I'm always getting a 2/1 flyer for 2, at least I know how to plan.
You can plan accordingly, yeah. Plus, if you ever bounce this guy, more counter spells.
I buy it. Yeah, I think it's... I'm probably underrating this card. Let's go with that.
What do you think of the another food enabler of sorts, or payoff, I guess? Emery Lurker. This card's like 2 and a blue for a 1/2 legendary creature. It costs 1 less for each artifact you control, such as food. So it could get down to 1 cost if you have 2 artifacts. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can tap, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn.
This card seems fantastic to me, but maybe not for standard, right? If you're like some kind of an affinity deck in Modern, for example, that can make blue, this card's always going to cost 1, right?
Yep.
So
1 mana, 1/2 legend.
Not the best, but like the long term on this, like your artifacts in the graveyard, they don't need to get there from memory, right? Like you can just have guys and be trading, or people are like destroying your stuff with their artifact removal. The thing that's powerful about this, I think, in one of those situations is if you get like 2 taps out of it, you might just destroy the opponent's sideboard strategy. Right? Like, if their whole plan was like, all right, I'm going to, like, play a guy and then, like, tempo you with some removal spells, and you're just, like, getting your key artifacts back, I think this is a really, really powerful card. Because it's so cheap. Right? If they kill it, they kill it. But, like, like, if you're just, like, have this card just, like, 1 blue mana kind of down payment, and then it's just a free demonic tutor from your graveyard kind of ability for the rest of the game for tap. I don't know. I think it's really, really strong.
Okay. We'll see. There's the fact that there's already this, the possibility that maybe it goes in some sort of an Urza deck. I do agree that this doesn't look like the first place I want to start with Standard, but...
Yeah, I don't think it's good enough for Standard. Well, only because the concentration of very cheap artifacts is low. Right? Like, in Modern, you're going to have, like, a ton of, like, 0 casting cost artifacts. Might even just include, like, an artifact land, for example, might be a 0 casting cost artifact. It's still going to get it down to 1.
All right. What do you think of Fairy Vandal? 1 and a blue, 1/2 flying flash. Fairy Rogue, when you draw your second card in a turn. I know we talked about this briefly before, but is this, like, is it time for the flash deck, the Simic flash deck?
Simic flash deck is... into my imagination, I'm predicting this to be one of the best decks in the upcoming format. It's got great tools. It's losing relatively little compared to the other incumbent strategies, and it's a really take all comers kind of deck because permission is in the abstract, like there's not a Teferi in play. theoretically good against everything, and then its creatures are fantastic, right? Between the Cutthroat and the Ambusher, and then some of these new guys we've been talking about even in this episode, I think that it has outstanding guts.
I just thought about something. Dude, this Emery Lurker, Lurker of, like, it's like, Lurker of the Lock. It's like, isn't this really good with Jeskai Ascendancy?
Jeskai Ascendancy, is that, how does that kill with a Zephyr?
Well, so Jeskai Ascendancy is white, blue, red, and whenever you play a non-creature spell, you untap all your creatures and give them +1/+1 until end of turn, right? So you can tap Emery and play like a Mishra's Bauble or something, right? And then your Mishra's Bauble will count as you playing it, so then it'll give Emery +1/+1 and untap Emery. You can sack the Bauble, so you'll have a card draw coming next turn, and then you can just tap Emery to play the Bauble again. So you can just make Emery arbitrarily large, and you can recurse any 0-mana artifact, such as a Welding Jar even. But any 0-mana artifact that sacrifices itself goes infinite with Emery and Jeskai Ascendancy.
Oh, you could probably just add a little bit of stuff to make like infinite mana, or like a looting ability, or like maybe loop some Moxes to do other infinites as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do. Yeah, like Mox Opal, you know? Lotus Petal's pretty sweet with this one, too. But
Yeah, I think that's great.
I think Jeskai Ascendancy seems like the most promising thing. I think there's going to be some really fast modern decks built around that. Maybe legacy decks, too.
That's like a turn 3 kill. I mean, provided Emery lives.
Maybe. I mean, you win turn 2 pretty easy. If Emery lives, you could just play... If you just put out, like, 2 zeros and Emery on the first turn, then you just play Jeskai Ascendancy on the next turn and you win immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a really fast... Like, and there's a lot of zeros you could use potentially. Like, for instance, like, I don't know if there's enough zeros that line up right, but I also wonder if there's a way to fuse this with some sort of a Paladin deck or something. I don't know. We're going to have to think about it, but this card seems like a very, very promising lead.
Yeah, but if you're just like first turn, like Darksteel Citadel, Welding Jar, Mox, tap the Mox and the Dark... I guess you need to tap them both. For Emery, and then you've already got a Welding Jar down... the writing's on the wall already, right? Like, like the Welding Jar's even get a defender.
Mm-hmm. And dude, and that's to say, wait, imagine if you just used a volcanic island and had your 2 artifacts or something else, so that you're just getting an anger when you flip the top 4 cards, so that then Emery just has haste. But, dude, you gotta watch out.
The Welding Jar will not defend her. She's not an artifact, right?
No. But they're just zeros. But the thing is, if you can flip over anger, man, why wait? What do you think of Mystical Dispute, man? You gotta watch out, right? Like, you try to play your Emery on turn 1, and then they Mystical Dispute it, which is the 2 and a blue instant counter spell unless its controller pays 3. But this spell costs 2 less if it targets a blue spell. So you can pay 1 mana to mana leak any blue spell, or 3 mana to mana leak other spells.
So do you think this card is like the king of the sideboard cards, or do you think this is going to be highly main-deckable?
Oh, it depends on how popular blue cards are. I think this card looks really good, though.
I mean, I think for sure this card is going to be a very plausible 4 of if blue cards are decent, but I don't know if about in the main deck. It's just like one of those cards. Like it's like a red elemental blast, right? A 1-mana counterspell for...
Yeah, but it's so much better on the backup plan. It's not the most embarrassing backup plan. I think this card's going to be a cross-format staple.
Is Syncopate, is that rotating? It is, right?
Yeah.
So with Syncopate rotating, maybe you could just play Mystical Dispute in Syncopate's spot, right? So this card is like worse than very few Syncopates. Like, only turn 2 Syncopates are better than Mystical Dispute. This is like basically Syncopate after that. But sometimes, like 20% of the time, you're just going to get them. And it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The card looks really good to me.
I can get behind it.
So we still don't have any more lands, but we do have some artifacts. Does Witch's Oven do anything for you? 1 colorless for a artifact. Tap and sacrifice a creature to create a food token. If the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create 2 food tokens instead.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. A lot of the stuff that I've been thinking about is just like in concert with Oko. So you can do a couple things with this. One, you can just sacrifice your own stuff like, Sam Black would do. And if you're sacrificing stuff that's big enough, you're getting multiple food. We've already talked about how with certain creatures, right, like that Troll King, having a bunch of food in play might be very, very valuable. But the other thing is if there's some way to just like kind of Ray of Command your opponent's guys, this is a really good way to end those kind of situations, right? Like grab your guy and then eat it.
Yeah. I mean, in particular, if you just value, like sometimes there's some overlapping stuff where you could just value having a cheap artifact,
Oh yeah,
and so like
super cheap. It's 1 mana and then it's only tap to use it.
So if you have a way to temporarily steal their guy too, I mean that's pretty exciting. I think you got to really, really, really mean it to use this because I don't think on the backup plane you're there. But this is a really cheap way to make some food. And depending on how turbo food you want to get, this card could be busted in some spots. It's probably not going to pan out, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
I mean, I like it. It's just so cheap.
Yep. Out of the artifacts, do any of the other ones do for anything for you? I mean, they're kind of a motley crew right now, right? Like just kind of some random limited cards or whatever, right?
Well, what about Embercleave? This card seems pretty... At least you could imagine situations where it's very powerful.
Oh, sure. So Embercleave is 4 red for, sort of. It's 4 red for legendary equipment. With flash, and it costs 1 less for each attacking creature you control. Kind of weird. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. And it equip creature has +1/+1 and double strike and trample. And you can equip for 3. So on the baseline, if you just attack with 1 creature, you can play this for 5. If you attack with 2 creatures, you can play it for 4. If you attack with 3 creatures, you're playing it for 3, all the way down to 4 creatures playing it for 2. But being able to give your creature +1/+1, double strike, and trample, I think doing that at instant speed when you're attacking for 2 mana is fantastic.
So the card is a little bit at odds with itself, right? So its costing is rewarding you for going wide, right? Like it's its minimum cost when you have 4 or more guys. But then its ability is kind of a go tall, right? Like let's say you're attacking with like 4 1/1 token creatures.
Well, it works really well if you're doing a like Beauty and the Beast type thing, right? Like if you're playing a green-white, if you're playing, say, a green-white-red token, let's say there's some Naya tokens deck, right? You could have a lot of 1/1s, but you also have 1 random 5/5. So your 5/5 is getting in there with a bunch of 1/1 tokens. So you are wide, but you get really paid off for the one guy who's tall.
Oh, all of a sudden he's swinging for 12.
Right. Because that's the way you got to do it, right? It's not going to have that many spots that it fits in, but it's really good in that spot, right? And then even if they kill it, you got a hell of a backup plan, because just paying 3 to move a +1/+1 double strike and trample equipment over is like, that's a very attractive proposition.
Agreed.
But I think you got to mean it. You can't just be Ember Cleaving just because you wanna.
Well, it's 6 on the baseline, so might be a little cost prohibitive.
Is this the one of this cycle that does the most for you so far? Because like they showed us the Circle of Loyalty, which is 4 white for a legendary artifact. It costs 1 less for each knight you control. Creatures you control will get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 white knight token with vigilance, and you can pay 3 white and tap this. 3 a white and tap it to get a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. I think the fact that now they've shown enough knights, this card's gained a bit of meaning, you know?
Sure. I'm more excited by Embercleave, though. I think like
Okay.
Embercleave is like one of those cards that scratches at my imagination.
Dude, you have to be in for Giant Killer. This is, oh my god, is Tom Ross going to win again? Even more. Giant Killer is white for a 1/2 human peasant that has tap and pay 1 and a white to tap target creature. So at a baseline, you get white for a 1/2 with tap and pay 2. But you have this option. You can just have in your deck a bunch of main deck answers to fatties. You can have Chop Down, 2 and a white, instant, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. So, like, that's, like, not a bad removal spell. And then you're drawing a card, which is this Tapper, which will help you deal with another giant, another big creature.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. And if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have a lot of fatties or no creatures, you could just, it's just increasing the redundancy of your 1-drops.
Dude, isn't this card like attractive for like a human deck in Modern?
I hadn't thought about that. Maybe.
Okay.
Just like
what about?
It's just free, right? You're not missing any ability to.
I guess it's hard to cast it. You can't. I don't think you get to cast Chop Down off of all the fixing, so it probably doesn't work.
I mean, a 1/2 mana requiring Tapper might be low power for their deck.
Yeah, I think it is. But in Standard, I think just being able to get this as a main deckable option, I think this card looks solid.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I would have. I mean, this is going to sound silly, but I would have liked for it to like destroy a forest or something, and also kill the creature, right? Because just thematically, like they're doing so much stuff to make the.
I don't want any white land destruction, dude.
Yeah, you're probably right. But
all
you
right,
see what I'm
man.
saying, right?
Okay, you want
He
some
chopped
flavor?
Down the tree.
I get it.
And the giant fell. He didn't chop down the giant.
He chopped down the beanstalk. He didn't chop down the tree.
All right, the beanstalk, whatever. Beanstalk's a giant tree, goes up to the sky where the gilded.
That's not a tree, man. That's not even in the tree family. All right, dude. How about Robin Hood then? Robber of the Rich. 1 in a red for a 2/2 human archer rogue. It's a 2/2 reach haste. Man, they are doubling down on 2/2 reaches. So this is a 2/2 reach haste. Another weird combination of abilities. When a Robber of the Rich attacks, if defending player has more cards in their hand than you, exile the top card of their library. During any turn you attacked with a rogue, you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell.
Well, this card is itself a rogue.
Right. But any of your other rogues too. Even if they kill this guy, you can still access all those cards later.
Yeah, so I think that like the reach haste is partly for flavor and then partly for functionality. Like I think they really wanted to get like the 2/2 haste for 2, and that whole paragraph they wanted it to make sense in a certain way. If you're playing first and you drop Robber of the Rich on the second turn, it's very likely if she gets through unblocked, the opponent's going to have more cards than you at that point, so you get immediately paid off. But the reach, I think, and I'm purely guessing on this, thematically, reach is often associated with like characters that are archers in pictures, right? So if you've got like longbow archers, for example, those guys.
Well, I think it just is going to play well. I think that having more colors have access to things like I think red and green each having reach and reach on creatures that actually show up. I think it's going to play really well and make it so that there's less like just when decks are all flyers and then they just attack past you, Gives the card a little bit more play to it.
I got you.
I think this card is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it's really exciting. It's like turn 2, it's most of an Ophidian.
But like on turn 2 and with haste.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, I can't wait to attack with it, connect with my opponent's face, draw some cards.
I think this could be one of the top 5 cards in the set. This card is phenomenal. This card will make a red mage out of me.
The other thing is, like, if you're playing, like, a red-blue deck, like, if you're bouncing things, Robber of the Rich gets even better, right? So, just as an example, you can turn something into a pumpkin, send it back to the opponent's hand, you make a food, and then get in with your Robber. They've got another card in their hand now. That's going to help trigger the Robber.
Speaking of haste, what do you think of Outlaw's Merriment? 1 red, white enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one at random. Create a red and white creature token with these characteristics. So you can get a 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste. You can get a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste. Or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any target.
So I don't like the fact that you can't pick which ones you're getting, but if your opponent lets us sit here for a few turns, it's probably just going to beat them, right? Like, this seems like really, really powerful in the very long term, right? It's just like, but like anything that's generating a kind of a consistent progressive advantage.
This is better than draw a card every turn, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste is like just legitimately spark elementaling them. Except
but you can keep it.
It's around. It's good, yeah. Like if it only had that ability, I think maybe it would be better, but it doesn't only have that ability. I think that the lifelink guy is actually pretty interesting too, and it has haste also. Not for nothing, this card is probably pretty good at setting up spectacles. Even that third guy who, he comes into play and then just pings him for 1. You can set up spectacles with this, which are obviously red, and they're going to continue to be in standard for their foreseeable. I think this card, like, I know it doesn't have.
I like it as a sideboard card, man.
Oh yeah, not as a main deck card. I think like
it could be as a main deck card. It's a little
it
medium.
Kind of reminds me of Outpost Siege.
Yeah, that's exactly where I think it's going to be used very similar, I think. Dude, green-white tokens got a big win. Oakham Ranger costs Celestia. So for 4 mana, you get a 2/2 Elf Knight. So those are some good types. Tap, creatures you control get +1/+1 until on a turn. But sorcery for Celestia, create 2/1/1 human tokens.
So the adventure, the bring back for 4 mana, only makes 2 guys. That's not a great deal.
No. I don't think it'll be good enough.
Yeah. It seems like a kind of if you want it, you got to really be in it for the crusade.
It's not even a crusade, though. Tap, your creatures get +1/+1 until on a turn. I don't know, man. If they got a big win, that's not it, sadly. But what are you going to do?
What is your favorite thing that you've seen since the last time we talked about this stuff?
Man, that's tough. I guess... maybe Robber of the Rich?
Yeah.
I don't know. But Robber of the Rich is like... Yeah, I don't know. Robber of the Rich is pretty high up there for me.
It's funny if you allow people to say that Robber of the Rich is making a red mage out of you, because at your first Pro Tour, you top 8'd with him on a red deck. So I think before we talked tonight, I would have said Once Upon a Time, which I get why you think that it's overrated. Overrated doesn't mean not very good. I think the card is going to be very good no matter what. But Feasting Troll King is the most exciting thing to me. And it's funny to me because it's so similar to Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time has even just like the mini reputation that it has so far on account of being able to be played for free. Feasting Troll King is going to get a lot of stuff done for 0 mana. Mark my words. This card is going to be a monster.
I could be into it. I do think Wildborn Preserver is like super high up there for me. I forgot though. I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I think it's like an automatic bomb. It's gonna be like just incredible. Murderous Rider, 1 black, 2/3 lifelink. When Murderous Rider dies, put it on the bottom of your library. So this 2/3 Zombie Knight, 2/3 lifelink. When it dies, put it on the bottom of your library. It has this adventure, Swift End, 1 black, destroy target creature or planeswalker. You lose 2 life.
Oh, so it has a hero's downfall on the front end.
So it's a hero's downfall where you pay 2 life to draw a card, and that card is a 2/3 lifelink. And when it dies, put it on the bottom of your owner's library. That is unreal. This card is just amazing. Like, this is like crazy strong. And it's like, it's even got lots of options too. It's not just the fact that your hero's downfall is for no reason drawing you an extra card. But
It's costing you 2 life. You just not
your
for nothing.
2/3 lifelink gets it back even, and then you get like protection against getting decked. And when you eventually shuffle your deck in some scenario, like if you've got an Evolving Wild, I don't know, you got a better spell count in your deck. But the fact that it's also got good types across the board, and then the fact that you get to do stuff like you're playing Esper, you can Teferi Time Raveler, bounce your Murderous Rider, so you just have another hero's downfall.
Yeah.
This card is crazy. This is the best card.
And the Hero's Downfall is an instant, right? And I think probably worth mentioning because people play the sorcery versions of that card and they were happy about it.
Dude, this card is ridiculous.
All right, you heard it here.
So that's my pick for the week.
Murderous Rider is the best card from Patrick. I'm loving Feasting Troll King. Interestingly enough, our cards can battle. Yours will win. But mine will be back. Mine will be back. So will yours.
Mine will be back too, long term.
All right.
All right, dude. Oh, dude, I should just play this in a zombie deck? Dude, in Modern, this in a zombie deck? Nice.
Oh, he is a zombie. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that you can just, like, draw zombies from your graveyard on the cheap, and now they're just Heroes Downfalls? Keep an eye on this card, dude. This card is going to be a problem. People are going to be complaining about this card in the next, before not too long, because this card is going to be so warping.
You think it's going to be like one of those things where like the Esper deck only has like 2 guys or 4 guys, and they're just Murderous Riders?
Well, I don't know. I think this card's just going to be so wide-reaching, it's hard to know the implications to all the different things, but this is like a defining card in the format.
In life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge for jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got